Ever thought you're sometimes going through the motions? Gary and I have both been there. And that's why we created the East West Coaching Podcast.
Welcome to Anna and Gary's East West Coaching.
I'm Anna, and joining me is Gary. We are here to chat about life, love, and everything in between. Whether you're feeling stuck, frustrated, or just looking for a little more spark in your life, we got you covered. Let's dive in.
So yeah, I mean, by the time we put this podcast out, I think it's going to be past Christmas.
Yeah.
But they were talking, obviously, about how difficult it can be at Christmas time for some people whose memories of people who died weigh heavily on them. And that although we certainly in the West we mostly associate Christmas with being happy and joyful and festive, it's not for everybody. Mm-hmm. And I think especially for people who either have recently been bereaved or this is their first Christmas without the person who's died, or maybe even the person who died around Christmas. If they died on Christmas Day or Christmas Eve, or suddenly all of those memories come flooding back, and it can be overwhelming. So I don't have that kind of association with Christmas at all. So I think I'm quite fortunate. I don't know what your experience is of kind of grief around Christmas.
Mine is the opposite of yours. It has been since my mom died.
Right.
Many years ago, like 20 years ago. Every year it's like you feel the loss. Not as much as before, but it's like Christmas reminds you of, those times when you were together in the family and it was cheerful and everything, and now you feel there's a piece missing. There's something missing. But it can also, happen if maybe you're a single parent and your child has grown up, has gone away, and at Christmas, she might not be able to come, for example, and you're alone. You feel a sort of, sadness there as well, and loneliness.
Yeah, I mean, it is grief and it is loss, because we feel like they should be with us. That's how it's always been. That's been the pattern of our lives. And if it's been a happy pattern, then we're going to feel that person not being there.
Yep, absolutely. And the weird thing is, for example, I always loved Christmas, right? Since I was little, I really liked Christmas, just the atmosphere. And it's, in a way, it's like I still like it. I still like Christmas, but it's like you just can't feel that joy anymore. I don't know. It's strange to explain it. You can't fully feel what you used to feel before, and in a way, it's a bittersweet time of the year.
I wonder what is a useful way for people to view this, people who are experiencing that grief, whether it's to a greater or to a lesser extent. I mean, what would be your advice to somebody who is just feeling really sad and having that kind of wave of grief sweep over them around Christmas? What would you say?
I would say just accept it. Grieve that person, think about the person, celebrating them, even if they're not here anymore. And then if you can, try and think of all the good times you had together and what that person gave you and the love you had together, whether it was a mother, a daughter, or a son. And if you can, try and not maybe be lonely on that day. Try and maybe meet up with friends or other relatives.
Yeah, I like what you say about acceptance. I would say don't try and fight the feeling. It's okay to feel sad at times. It's normal. And it's a reflection of the fact that the person who has died meant something to you. You know, billions of people have died, and we don't feel sad for all of them because they meant nothing to us. They didn't touch our lives. But the people that we mourn are those that cared for us, or we cared for them. And they created, like you say, these wonderful memories that we miss, or that we look back on and long for to have again.
Yeah. I mean, in a way, it's also, you're thinking about them. You're honoring their life. It's like, if you pretended, oh no, everything is okay, and I'm not thinking about it and not thinking about that person, what was the point? Yeah, you're sad, but at the same time, it's because you're still feeling love for that person. So there's nothing wrong in thinking about that person, even if it's a bit sad. Well, a lot sad. At the beginning can be very sad. There can be a lot of pain, but with time, the sadness is still there, but maybe the pain is gone. It's got lighter.
Or maybe these waves that sweep over us don't last quite as long, so they may be just as intense, but maybe they ebb quicker than they used to.
Yeah.
We live in a world where we cannot avoid pain. And this is part of our life, is the acceptance of the pain.
Yeah, for me, if I'm thinking, at the beginning when my mom passed away, it was strange, right? Because your mom dies, you get 3 days of work for the funeral and everything, and then you go back to work, and obviously everyone, says I'm sorry, whatever. But it was like, and they get on with their lives. Like a minute after, they get on with their lives, but you're still there thinking, I mean, this just happened. It's not like, life goes on and everything is like before. So it was a very weird period, because obviously I cared. They cared in a different way, right? I mean, it had nothing to do with them, but it was very difficult to to accept this. Like, why are other people getting on with their lives? Like, I lost my mom. You know what I mean? And also, I think you have the right to grieve the way you want to grieve, for as long as you want to grieve. There's no timings. There's no, things you have to do or not to do. There is a process, and there's no point in skipping the steps. I know there are a few steps in grief.
I mean, it's interesting what you said about, people gave their condolences to you, and they felt sympathy for you, and then they got on with their lives. And you think, I've just lost somebody really close to me. How can you carry on living your life knowing that my life has changed this dramatically? It will never be, and you're just going about your life like normal. How can you do that when the world has so dramatically changed for me?
I mean, in a way, you understand. Obviously, you understand, right? You're rational. You understand. And at the same time, it's like you can't. You don't want to accept this thing that, why do you go on with your life so easily when my mom has died? It's weird. It's a weird thing. Yeah, so that made me sad, right? Because obviously, when I was going back to work each day, I was still in that grief and that sadness. But other people were acting normal. Sometimes people don't even know what to say to you. They are scared of, what can I say to this person?
Yes, people say some really unhelpful things at those times. Maybe we'll talk about that in a minute. Some of my colleagues from ecology were saying is that actually part of the grief is that you think, I don't want to make everybody else around me miserable. And so you cut yourself off. I don't want to be like this with other people and make their Christmas awful. And that may hold some people back from actually making those connections, which can be so useful. And I think that while that's a noble thing to think, to be caring about other people at such a difficult time, actually, you might be giving them the opportunity to care for you. You can go and say, look, I'm feeling really awful at the moment because I'm remembering my husband or my wife. I want to be with you, but if you allow me just to be quiet at times, take myself away when I need to, is that okay? You don't need to be worried about me or running around me, and kind of just be open and real and honest about where you're at.
Yeah.
And if they're good friends, they're going to go, yeah, that's okay. Just come and be.
Yeah, just to express clearly, and at the same time, those people, I think they can cope with your feelings, right? I mean, you are the one affected by those feelings. It's not other
Yes.
people. They might have sympathy, but
Mm-hmm.
uh, like you're the vulnerable person in that moment. So surely you will think about that person. You will feel down, inside. But that doesn't mean that, you can't or you won't be able to have a conversation or sometimes even laugh with those people. So it doesn't take away from your grief. It just, let you forget for a minute, get a little bit of distance for a few minutes. So
Yeah. Yes, just because you feel overwhelmed doesn't mean that the people around you will feel overwhelmed by your feelings.
exactly.
And it's for them to cope with. That's their thing, not yours. We
Yeah.
cope with our own feelings. You said about laughing. I think that's a really interesting thing because I've spoken to a lot of people who feel guilty when they first laugh after somebody close to them has died. And they just for a moment they've forgotten the person and they've heard a joke or they've seen something funny or something to touch them and they laugh and then they go, oh, how can I be laughing when this person has died? And then a kind of a wave of guilt then comes to them and they feel guilty about having forgotten for a few moments this other person.
I don't think I felt that. Because in a way, I mean, you're still alive and you're human. So it's normal to have sadness, grief, but it's also normal to maybe laugh at a joke or something you see that makes you laugh. You are a whole being, right? It's not like, oh no, I'm only gonna feel sadness and grief. It's unfair on you.
Yeah. Before they died, your whole life wasn't just about them. There were other things going on in your life. And now that they've died, your whole life is still not all about them. So, why can't you? Why shouldn't you be able to enjoy life again? And I wonder whether this is a little bit to do with culture. I wonder how our national culture influences that and our family culture and how we think about what we should and shouldn't be doing.
That brings to mind, we all have different ways of grieving, right? So when someone is maybe criticizing another person, like, oh, wow, I don't know, this person died and is already going out or is already, doing stuff or is already traveling or whatever it is, each person has got their own way of coping with that. So it's not up to us to decide if that's the right way or the wrong way to grieve.
Yes, and as soon as we make those judgments, we actually begin to burden the other people with what's our shit. If we don't want to grieve that way, okay, that's fine. You don't have to grieve that way, but don't put it on other people. Why would you do
Exactly.
that? And just because somebody's laughing doesn't necessarily mean they're happy. It could be that they're just trying to fit in, or they're just trying to make life a bit more normal again, to normalize their routines, because that may be a way of just getting through day to day without collapsing.
Yeah,
I wanted to
absolutely.
ask you about Italy. So I wonder how, are there any traditions in Italy around grieving once somebody has died?
Relatives come over
Mm-hmm.
at your house before the funeral, then we go to church all together. I have a funeral. I go to the cemetery, and then who wants comes back to your house, but it's not like a strict thing. Or other people just go home.
And is there an official period of mourning?
3 days from
3 days.
work.
We're losing in the UK, I think, any tradition around grieving. And whilst that allows people to do their own thing, which on the one hand might be good, actually, people work really well with tradition, because tradition gives a structure. It flags up certain moments in life that enable you to navigate and negotiate and to be open about how you feel, becoming less normal now to go to church for a funeral and with all the traditions that go on there. But it's been replaced. So you will often see flowers along the roadside where people have died, or there's been an accident or whatever. There's nothing special about that place other than it seems that as humans, we need something to go to. We need a place to be in order to mark, to remember, to honor. And so if there's no tradition, we will create something. I mourn some of the passings of our traditions. In the Jewish tradition, one of the things they do is they tear their clothes, or they wear torn clothes. And this signifies to people around that this person has recently lost somebody, and they will wear those clothes, I think, for a year, if I remember rightly. And so what the person is going through, or that they've recently lost somebody. They also have an open house. So I don't like that word, they've lost somebody. I think they haven't lost anybody at all. They know exactly where they are. That recently somebody has died. They have an open house, and in that open house, people will bring food so that the grieving person doesn't have to cook. And they will sit, and each person who comes into the house will talk about the person who has died to the grieving person. And they will talk about memories. And that's the only reason they're going there. Like they're going there to do that. So it's out in the open. There's no hiding from it. There's no pretending. There's no feeling awkward about what do I say, what don't I say. Everybody knows it's going to happen. We're all going to die at some stage. So here we go. Let's tell those stories. And I think that's a wonderful tradition. It supports the person physically, and it supports them psychologically as well. In Germany, how well kept it is, but women certainly would wear black for a whole year after their husband had died. And again, it's a very clear sign of what's happened.
Yeah, here as well. Well, especially the old generation. Now it's not that used anymore. But yeah, wearing black. If I remember well, I think my dad, when my mom died, wouldn't shave. I think it was about for a month. I don't know where he got that from, but he decided, not to shave for that period of time. I don't know. That was his way of doing that.
And in the Middle East, again, there is very open and loud wailings. You see women, especially women, but maybe not just women, lying in the sand and throwing sand over themselves, again as a sign of loss and abject acknowledgement of what has happened.
Here in the south mostly, it happens a lot, when there are people at funeral, especially close relatives. It's not like maybe I don't know, the English or other cultures where they're really, they keep it all for themselves. It's like these women are like just crying and like desperation.
I think you're right about the English. I think we are known for being fairly tight on emotions and not letting anything out. It's really unhelpful. And we don't know what to say. So some of the terrible things that people say are, oh, they've gone to a better place. If you believe that, maybe, but they're not here. I'm still missing them. My preference is that they were with me. Thank you very much. Are you telling me
Yeah.
that they would rather not be with me if they've gone to a better place than being with me?
Oh well, there we go in a direction which it's okay if you say certain things because your religion tells you that, right? And you might say that to other people. Oh, she's an angel now, or oh, she's still with you. She's there with you. She's always present. Okay, but that's it. If you believe that, that's good for you. But if I don't believe it, and you tell me those things, I feel like, come on, what the heck are you talking about? Inside of me, I'm saying, yeah, okay, yeah, all right, yeah, sure. But if you don't believe in those things, it's like you've been insulted in a way, right? It's like minimizing your loss.
Mm-hmm.
So you
Yes.
need to be very careful what you say to other people. And in fact, to me, when someone dies, the only thing I say is, I'm really sorry, and there's no words I can say to you to make things better. That's it. That's all I say, because I'm not going to say, oh, there's an angel and she'll always be there by your side. And you don't know that. I mean, so.
Yeah, I mean, some people may believe that, and that's great.
Yeah.
But you could say things like, I imagine this must be really difficult for you right now. Or I can't imagine how difficult this is. You must be feeling really pained. And just acknowledging that it's okay. Nothing's going to happen to them or to you by just saying what the truth is. And the other thing people do is they avoid talking about the person who has died. They'll talk about everything except for the death.
Yeah.
If you love somebody, what you really want is to hear their name and to hear them being talked about in a loving way.
Yeah.
And even if you don't know what to say, you can offer to do practical things, because if somebody's feeling really bereft, they may not be up to cooking their own meals. They may not feel like it. So if you cook a meal once a week for them, that might be something that they really, really appreciate, and knowing that, you're thinking of them.
Yeah, actually, that's what some of our neighbors did. The very first few days, they would come with something that they prepared. So that was very nice of them.
Terrible things to say. Oh, at least they had a long life. Again, that just doesn't take away from the fact that I'm missing them.
Yeah, or like people that say, if someone died suddenly or someone was ill for a long time, and it's like, yeah, well, at least you had time to prepare. No, because you're always hoping that the person will get better and they might not die. It's not that you're not prepared. You're just aware that that person is ill. It doesn't mean that you're getting prepared for that person to die. You can't accept it, so you're not preparing. It's always painful, no matter how it happens, and no matter at what age it happens. I think it's always painful.
How about this one? There's a reason for everything. You know what? There's a reason why I just punched you in the face.
Yeah, I was gonna say, can I swear? Yeah, beep, beep, beep.
Or if the person has lost a child and you hear, well, you can always have another one.
Oh my
almost commoditizing, a human being. Just go back to the shop and swap. It'll be fine.
maybe they think they're doing something good, or maybe they just can't cope with those feelings and they
Yes.
just try and, make it lighter or make it go away or by
Yes.
saying something like that. All right.
Yeah, I think probably it's more that is that people feel so awkward about maybe the person in front of them crying. Maybe they can't imagine it for themselves, and it's just too hard for them to deal with. She wouldn't have wanted you to feel this way. When I die, if my wife doesn't cry, I'm coming back to haunt her. I wanted to be upset when I die.
It's okay to be upset the right time that it takes.
Mm-hmm. When I was trained to be a mental health nurse, back in the day, uh, we were talking about grief then, and we were told the right time for grieving is 6 months. Anything after
Mm.
6 months, and then that becomes abnormal.
Wow, I'm abnormal then.
Oh, I knew that.
I've grieved my mom for years and years.
Yeah.
I cried so many times when, something came up, or I was watching a film and I would miss her, and in so many, little instances. So I don't think that's right. Obviously, if you spend 10 years in depression, yeah, that's not
Not healthy.
beneficial.
Mm.
Help exactly. But for the rest, I mean, I think you can grieve for the rest of your life in certain
Yes.
moments, and there's
Yes.
nothing wrong with that.
And the odd thing is, you have no idea when it's going to hit you.
Yeah, exactly.
It could be anything that sets you off. It could be a smell or
Mm.
a taste of something, and it just takes you back to a particular memory, and that all of those feelings that you thought had maybe disappeared just well up again, and just take over you for it may only be for a short while, but it's there.
Yeah.
And I think that's really hopeful actually, because it does show that we don't forget, and that person has made a real mark on our lives. That we
Yeah.
that we will be very different people except for us having spent time with them.
Mm.
And I would say that in a sense, that person can never leave us. That physically they've died, but actually there's something of them that has become a part of us and who we are.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, when my mom died, I felt like my heart was cut in two, literally cut in two, and I lost a piece. Like films, like that person is gonna die, right? And there's a relative there, whoever it is, and that person says, I'll always be with you as long as you have me in your heart. And it's true. That's the only way you can keep them with you forever. You have them in your heart, and you can't erase that. And in that way, you keep honoring them, and no, I mean, a life is important. It's not like, once someone is died, okay, it's gone and that's it. There's nothing wrong with that, and still remembering and feeling love for them. That's the only way you can keep them alive, really, the memory.
I just listened to an audio book by a guy who used to be in the Commandos. Story of a friend, two friends, and one who was grieving and had cut himself off, and his other friend said, "I'm going to just keep on calling you at this particular time every day. You don't have to answer. On this time every day, I'm going to ring. And if you feel like answering, you answer. And if you don't, that's okay. But just know that I am not going to stop calling you." And that meant everything to them. Just knowing that somebody was there. But I was very touched by that, by the love that those two men showed for one another. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
That dedication, just being there. Nothing was expected. And sometimes when we cut ourselves off and we don't want to be with anyone else, just knowing that there is somebody who is caring for us and is going to be there when and if we need them is really comforting.
Yes, very beautiful actually, because you do feel very lonely in those times.
Mm. Yes, I mean, I've heard people talk about they can be walking through a crowd in a town centre with people completely surrounding them and feeling so isolated.
At the beginning, I remember I used to walk, and I would see someone that looked like my mom, and I was like hoping that it was her, that she just left. She went on holiday somewhere. It's really weird, that period. It's like, and I kept dreaming that she just went away. She just needed a holiday or something, and she would come back soon. And each time in a dream, it was like, "Mom, you come back," and like we would hug, and I'd be so happy. It's just like you can't accept it at the beginning. It's just too strange, too strange.
You can't accept it, and you don't want to accept it either.
Yeah.
Because we can't imagine what life will be like without them. Because they've always, with your mum or your dad, they've always been there. How can you imagine? How can you possibly imagine a life without them being around? Now, of course, we know that hope is, as you've shown, it's like actually life can go on. It's not the same. It will never be the same, but it can have its beauty, and it can have its happy times, and you can become fulfilled, but it's not the same as it was.
No, it's not. It's not the same. Yeah, but as you say, you can, you still move on. You have your life. Maybe you have your kids, and that brings you so much joy, and you just live your life. It just changes. There's different stages. Yeah, and the pain is not as much. The sadness still there. The pain is not as much.
And so I think, although we haven't said it, stage where you're grieving, you don't need a coach or a counselor, because what you're going through is normal. And what the best thing that you can have are people around you, friends to talk to, and being able to tell your stories again and again and again. I think if you don't have that support network, then maybe going to somebody who will just listen to you.
Yeah.
Not with the idea of fixing you because you're not broken. Not with the idea of trying to change your thoughts or anything like that. It's just to be there and to be able to go through that process with somebody that will listen to you non-judgmental. I think when maybe either bereavement counselling or coaching or therapy may be advisable is if you are unable to function in life, when just everything is far too dark and you really can't see a way ahead. And at that point, it might be worth finding somebody to talk to, professionally.
Yeah.
I want to tell you a story about a time when I went to Poland. We went there to live in a small community, and we learned about a family who 20 years previously had been in a car accident. And in the car accident, it was 2 or 3 people had died, including a little girl, and one of the brothers, and I think a sister had died. It was a fairly traumatic incident. And everybody was told that they weren't allowed to be sad because all these people were now with God. And if you were sad, that means that you didn't trust God. And so you had to rejoice. All of that anguish was held within the family, and it had an incredible impact how that the whole family did and didn't cope with life, and so much dysfunction going on there. When you talk to them, they talked almost as if the accident had happened the day before. They hadn't moved on. It was a massive story, but also a story where they were saying, and we just rejoiced. But obviously, they just hadn't processed anything. They hadn't allowed themselves to go through that, including the mother of the child who died. I tell that story because I think it shows how important it is to be authentic and true about how we are feeling and allowing ourselves to properly mourn.
Yes. I would say, at least in those moments, just trust yourself. Don't listen to anyone else, whether it's religion, a teacher, or someone who thinks, they know how to go through grief. Just listen to yourself, what you need, how you want to express, whatever.
I think it's probably time for us to wrap up. What I would say is that if you know somebody, who is grieving, be a good friend by just being there for them. Listen to them, empathize with them, do not judge them, and allow them to be. Encourage them to be who they really are. What would you add to that, Anna?
Don't be afraid of reaching out, because you might be thinking, I might, disturb, or, let's leave her grief. But that person might want someone that is there for them, and even knowing that someone is thinking about them and what they're going through. So don't be afraid of reaching out.
And I want to thank you, especially because you've been very vulnerable as we've been talking today. And I know that had a big impact on you around that time, and you still carry that love for your mum right now. So I appreciate you being open and honest.
It's been a long time, so I'm much better now.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dance for me. Dance, 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 and dance for me. Dance for me. Dance, 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 dance for me. Pull up, I got 5 wishes on a Friday. I know y'all different, y'all popping bottles in broad day. So much cameras, I gotta move in a small way.